you for coming. For those of you that do not know me, I'm Tony Azola. I'm the Neighborhood Program Coordinator for the City of Kent. Currently, if you don't know about the program was established back in 2006 to connect residents and businesses within the City of Kent limits with city government and to try to work together on all types of things, whether it be traffic calming, land use, neighbor-to-neighbor issues, building permits. Currently, we have 24 recognized neighborhood councils. You may have seen the big map as you came in, all the blue shaded areas. Those are the different neighborhood councils. They range from anywhere from 30 homes in a neighborhood council to 2,200 homes in a neighborhood council. So where we are going with this in 2013 is a bigger area, a bigger say. And we're looking at districts. So these are larger footprints, possibility of 10,000, maybe 15,000 residential homes within an area. One of the things that we did, we looked at topography, we looked at major arterials, we looked at census, we looked at primary schools, we looked at the police sector. So all this information that we have, we threw it on a map and then came up with these dark black lines. Now they're not permanent, they're suggested. So what we want as we work through this and move forward is input from the community of where, if those lines make sense. So again, thank you for coming. I'd like to first introduce Mayor Cook this evening. She is here. And Mayor Cook, would you like to say something?
What a great turnout for a summer evening, even though they threatened that it was going to be cooler with some thunder showers again tonight. You are here, and this is really where the electricity is. The electricity that drives Kent into being a stronger community through its neighborhoods. Tony Azola had talked about the gentleman you're going to have the privilege of hearing this evening. And it's one thing when you hear about someone secondhand, but it's another when you get the opportunity to hear it directly from that individual. Dr. Elton Gatewood, I would sum up as being truly a sage of the neighborhoods. He gets it when it comes to the identity formed among a group of people who reside close to each other. He gets it when it comes to people seeking a way to affect their surroundings, their neighborhood, and their city. So the whole concept of empowering, say that word, empowering people at the local level is key to his belief system. I was so intrigued by what he has done through his years as far as advancing ideas into action. Not by being the director per se, but by being the motivator, the facilitator, the one who helps guide the way. I know that you are going to sense the similar excitement that I held in meeting with him. It turned out to be an hour and a half, just intense. And I had more questions, just digging deeper into some of the nuances of how he was able to accomplish what he accomplished through others. So, without taking up any more of your time, I want your full attention to the man of the hour, next hour. in helping share the good news as to what he's been able to accomplish, as I've said, through others in Tacoma. Dr. Gatewood.
Well, I want to just say a few things, just so you know a little bit about him. 37 years with the city of Tacoma, developed, implemented, and administrated the Neighborhood Council program back in 1978. So he was one of the first people to have this concept. Board of Directors of Neighborhoods USA, that's NUSA, so this is across the nation neighborhoods, since 1984, and a national president for 7 years. Part-time consultant, municipal government, in international consulting for 20 years, so he goes internationally and does this. Adjunct professor and lecturer, University of Washington, Tacoma, at Evergreen State College with the Urban Studies and Public Administration for 18 years. And he's the co-founder of the Government Leadership Institute in collaboration with the University of Washington in Tacoma in 1992. So he's a mover and a shaker. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. And Mayor Cook, thank you for being so kind. Now my expectation level has risen. But I'm honored, first of all, to be here in the city of Kent and to be able to share some of my life experiences as well as my professional experiences with you as it relates to the neighborhood councils. You call them district, I call them council. So if I say council, I mean district. As I look in the audience, I see one of my ex-students, Belai, yeah, he was in one of the community organizing classes that I had at the University of Washington. So I feel a little more comfortable as I see and meet new people. I met Mr. Snyder, Ms. Jones, and we shared a few moments together. I thought I would start off by putting things into perspective as it relates to neighborhoods. One thing I had prepared a few slides to kind of help me along the way in this one, and I wanted to kind of give the history of neighborhoods at a glance. I'm not going to go into a lot of details. I had prepared to try to give a quick glance of neighborhoods, and as far as I'm concerned, that it is a process of democracy, and democracy and civil society are the roots of participatory government. And this is inherent throughout the founding of the country, the nation. Our framers of the Constitution felt that they needed to find some way to be inclusive and have people making decisions at the local level. And so therefore, over the past several decades, social policies have turned to local communities to assist them in planning it for actions, everything from integration to housing to development and creating whole new communities. So it's very paramount that you have that participatory thing. And neighborhoods have also, and government has also focused on neighborhood representation through participation by residents far beyond the role of just the initial government to a broader governance role. We have coined the notion of grassroots democracy, neighborhood-based governance, where the neighborhoods governance are community organizations or districts. They are not to overlap or duplicate the elected officials. This is kind of a, like I said, neighborhood-based governance is people by the people yourself, and then you act as advisory to the elected official. So that's kind of a brief historic perspective on that. Now, what is community organizing? If you're thinking about formalizing a neighborhood program, let's say the idea of citizen participation and creating a system of neighborhood organizations is nothing new. It's rooted in democracy and civil society since the nation was founded. And they were created with the notion by the government that government of the people, for the people, and by the people, which tells me that you should formulate the neighborhood councils, you should have your self-governance, and you should also be for you and the people that reside within your neighborhood area. Secondly, the framers of the Constitution attempted to incorporate provisions for inclusive citizens' engagement. And I mentioned that is part of the first slide. And thirdly, you need to remember that democracy reproduces itself. It trains new generations in the ideas and practice of citizenship. So not only are citizens engaged and informed, they create a new set of leaders. Leadership is important. So as you move further into the organizational structure, you need to begin to train a new generation of people. Sometimes you stay at the leadership so long, you take such an ownership, you forget it's not about you, it's about the people in the community. So leadership development and capacity building is very, very important. I just use this as an example. I saw this somewhere that the American Revolution, it just didn't happen. It was organized. And I'm using you as the people. You're the people. They organized it. They held meetings just like we do. They planned strategies, leadership. They set up communication. They didn't have computers, but they had forms of communications. They defined it items and issues. They took direct action and built coalitions just as we do in our neighborhoods and communities today. Now, what is a community organization? I'm sure you can find 5 or 6 different definitions. And so what I tried to do is to look around and come up with one that I felt that was appropriate in terms of defining what it is. It's a strategy and a process. It's both a strategy and a process for building democratic citizen participation to achieve change, and provides alternatives so that residents are capable of improving and directing direct access in the decision-making process that affect their neighborhood and improve their circumstance. Now, creating a neighborhood organization involves several things. It builds relationship across a network of people who identify with common values and ideas and who can participate in sustaining social action. Secondly, it represents the entire process of organizing relationships, identifying issues, and moving to action on those issues that have been identified. And last but not least, it also evaluates the results of those actions and maintain a sustained organization capable of continuing to act on issues. To me, that's what community organizers is true about. Sometimes people can just mobilize, but they cannot sustain themselves. But I think this is a structural way of keeping some level of sustainability. Now, what would you envision as the purpose of organizing a community? I think it informs citizens and engages them in problem solving in order to come up with the best solution and an alternative. I've often said, if there is something that you don't like, what is your alternative to that? Over several years, I've discovered that people only vary about 15% apart. They all want some of the same thing. And if you can bridge that 15% gap and come up with a balanced win-win scenario, I think the purpose of this process, of this system, is to achieve that. Citizen organizations accept that decisions are legitimate when the substance and the perception of the process appear to be fair, transparent, and democratic. We often don't feel comfortable if we are not involved in a fair process. We feel as though deals are made in smoky rooms and back alleys or wherever people hang out at. But in order to legitimize that, it needs to be an open process and transparent so people can feel more comfortable and that it is a legitimate process. They create a sense of unity. That's the purpose of an organization, a sense of community. And it's a way of establishing communication between groups in the community and the city so that they come to understand each other's need and build a stronger relationship. It is also a way of building different kinds of community and training its future leaders. you can't take it to the grave with you. So like I said, I encourage that capacity building element as well as training a new generation in terms of the democratic process. I visualize, and your goals may not be the same goals, and everybody's goals may not be the same, but this is kind of something that I came up with, that the organizational goals or setting goals are important to the success of the community organization. It assists them in focusing and achieving anticipated outcomes. Remember the word outcomes. We can sit around and daydream, but we don't have anything to show for it. So outcomes are very important. I often used to say at work, you know, government get bogged down in process. What is the product? People believe what they can see. As Tony Barrett mentioned, I had worked in government for 37 years for the city of Tacoma, and I loved my job. I was committed, I was dedicated, the pure essence of a public servant. And, but to me, it was so important that you had something to show. And after this, I'm gonna go through the Tacoma experience. I've only had a few slides to show you some things that we did during that period of time. The goal is to mobilize residents who hold a common interest in addressing local problems. They build networks between residents that directly benefit individuals to address the issues that negatively affect their neighborhood life. Collectively, your goal should be to be a long-term successful opportunities to positive change structure, changing the structure. And it also creates an avenue for ordinary people like you and I to be able to influence public affairs and public policy. I like to play on the word influence because when people talk about government, and in some instances they talk about building power, I think building power is, but to me, I like to use the word influence. To me, it's the same thing, but it does not have such an impact that it's reversed in terms of appearing to be negative. But influence, in my opinion, is pretty much the same thing as power. So if I use the word influence, I may be referring to power also. And it provides an opportunity to bring people together to analyze local problems, develop solutions, and collectively pressure the public and private sector to create new paths and to implement them. Now, there are about 4 or 5 different principles of community organizing that I've come up with. Several principles that provide the best means to distinguish community organizing strategies for change, improvements, and social betterment. A participatory culture, inclusiveness, and the breadth of mission and vision, and a critical perspective. Now let me talk about the participatory culture. It's called really the iron rule of organizing, and it goes something like this. It devotes considerable time and resources to enlarging the skills, knowledge, and responsibility of its members. In other words, never do for others what they can do for themselves. And somewhere I've heard this is an old cliche that teaching a guy how to fish and don't bring him a fish or something, and I'm not really clear on that. I've heard it so many times over my life. Another principle is the one of inclusiveness. Develop membership and leadership from a broad spectrum of the community and dedicated to fostering participation among groups that have been commonly absent from the table. For whatever reasons, some people have not always been welcomed to the table. So I think this act of inclusiveness is to engage those persons that have traditionally not been at the table with you. And the breadth of mission and vision. Issues that affect the welfare of the community are within the purview of the community organizing and are adopted to integrate a diverse set of issues, linking them to a larger vision. This is a holistic approach, a holistic function that organizations should be designed to do. Not just one issue, you need to look at the big picture and develop a vision for that. And the notion of critical perspective seeks to change policies and institutions and promote institutional accountability and responsiveness. Effective governance depend upon civicness, not always consensus. It stimulates participation and leads to a deeper form of collaboration. I'm sure that everyone has strengths and weaknesses, and I don't want to rely on your weaknesses. I want to identify the strengths. So the principal strength of a community organization falls into three, what I consider broad categories. The first one is civic engagement. The second one is the improvement of policy and service delivery. And one is the quality of life. Now let's talk about the civic engagement. It provides a system of organizations and institutions arranged for citizen involvement. It provides a mobilized participation and action around particular issues and promotes and encourages civic engagement based on opportunity. I'm going to stop at the word opportunity. I think if the system of the government, whomever, and the organization itself provide an opportunity, it's left up to those individuals to participate. They say you can't take a horse to water and you can't make him drink or something similar to that. But if you have a process in place that encourages and promotes participation, I think you've done your job. You need to go out and recruit, but the opportunity is there. And basically that's something that you can do as an organization, and it is the strength of an organization. It offers an avenue for input and is a mechanism for participation and develop the capacity to be an effective citizen. And lastly, under civic engagement is that not everyone will get involved. Individuals' participation is voluntary, and it does not always provide a level playing field. I've often told people the new democracy is decisions are made by those in attendance. So if you don't attend, you don't participate, and you don't have your way, tough. That's saying kind of a mean spirit to say it that way, but people come up a day late and $1 short, and they are opposed to something in most cases, but they had that opportunity that I mentioned up there, and they chose not to participate. And the results was not to their liking, so they're mad at the world. And so that's just kind of cautionary thought, is that it's voluntarily, not everybody's going to participate, and it does not provide a level playing field. So if you want to play ball, you need to be there, okay? And secondly, the improvement of policy and service delivery. Organizations and participatory opportunities provide policy and service delivery. What I mean by that is organizations and community leaders can operate at the neighborhood level as a conduit of information for policies and services, and can also be a part of a system that supplies services not provided by the public sector. An example of that is neighborhood cleanup and self-help kinds of activities. So the city can't be all things for all people all the time. So you need to keep that in mind, that as a group, and some of your strength is in numbers and various resources that you have, physical or monetary or otherwise. So I think that is very important. And improving the quality of your life. The neighborhood identifies and connections, the neighborhood identity and connections and level of pride and commitment can make mobilization around a collective goal possible. Now, in a neighborhood, if you don't know anybody, or if you've not established a network or connectivity, then you may have a problem mobilizing if there is an issue that needs to be addressed. But I think there needs to be both an individual as well as a group commitment to providing, to achieving certain goals that you set out to do. And lastly, is to play the strength of the organization is to play an important role in promoting unity where diverse and historic relationships are tied to neighborhood identity. This strength is based in the neighborhood and their closeness. When we define neighborhoods, sometimes there are so many different kinds. Neighborhoods, in some cases, become perceptions. Sure, we have boundaries and lines like that, but if you perceive you live in a different ethnic neighborhood, or this kind of neighborhood, or the other kind, but I think those strong ties are the things that bring people together. Neighborhood organizations evolve, and they vary. There are several factors that you need to consider. Neighborhoods, they vary widely in terms of size, scope of what they do, and the level of competency within that neighborhood. All neighborhoods are not alike. All people that live in neighborhoods are not alike. The level of their understanding, some are 4th grade, 8th grade, 12th grade, college, but that should not define what they can contribute to a neighborhood. They live there, they work there, they pray there, they play there, and do everything there. But so I think they do vary. I've dealt with some neighborhoods which are some of not many means. You'd be surprised who did not have a computer. And if they did have one, they couldn't afford to have it hooked up. So they were doing handwriting and door-to-door kinds of knocking. So they compensated for their lack of resources for their organization, and they were very effective, to say the least. Some of neighborhoods focus on single issues, while others tackle a variety of issues under one single organization umbrella. Some focus solely on problems on their block or in their neighborhood. Others focus on issues across neighborhoods by expanding or forging alliance with other neighborhood organizations and agencies within the area, and with alliances with other neighborhoods, so that's the same as counterparts. And some work to build people power, which is very effective, by recruiting large numbers of members and developing the leadership ability of its members. It should be driven and controlled by members through a democratic decision-making process, and issues should be selected based upon self-interest of its members. Now, why do we organize? I'm sure we could come up with a million reasons why we organize, but I think basically the basic right to be involved in the public process, as mentioned earlier in the slideshow about democracy, how the Constitution and the framework of the Constitution. So to me, this is very important. But realistically, I think we all work, live, we raise our family, we own businesses, and I say to work, play, pray, or play, or whatever. We do things in a neighborhood. You may work over here, but you leave work and you go to a neighborhood. So I think we are all entrenched into that whole neighborhood. Like I said, it becomes a perception. It's where you go to, or where you work at, or where you pay your taxes at too. And that we have some emotional ties to that. You know, that's the family house. My grandmama and great-grandmother, that's a generational thing. So we have some personal and emotional investment. It constitutes an affirmative activity. That participatory process is an affirmative activity. And it is an exercise of the very initiative, creativity, self-reliance, and faith that specific programs seek to instill. And it provides a special insight, information, knowledge, and experience that cannot be ignored by those concerns or with those efforts of achieving their goals. It is also a means of mobilizing the resources and energy of the residents and of converting them from the passive consumer of services into productive and producers of service, or productive citizens, if you want to call it that way. It helps the government fulfill its responsibility to find ways to improve those affected persons and neighborhoods as a means of fairness, and seek assurance that they are fully involved in a working partnership with the government. I don't want to rush through, but to me, time is of the essence. I wanted to kind of give you a brief background of Tacoma experience, and then it becomes your show. You know, I can talk for days. I love this so much, but I need you to participate. This is your neighborhood, and this is what we need to talk about. And we talked about power, and we talked about influence and building power. And how did we get started? I just want to talk about that briefly. There's no right way or wrong way. Whatever works for you and within your neighborhood is the right way. You know, often residents come together because of a crisis or other concerns that threaten the health, safety, and well-being of their community, and they're frightened to death. I call it the wolf knocking at the door. We got to do something. We're scared to death, but you, with that people power, can do something. And then it just may be a simple issue where somebody say, I'm mad as the devil. I'd like to get started to see what we can do. People are standing on the corner there dispensing drugs. So what do we do? And that's enough to make you angry. That's enough to make you do something. And you realize you can't do it by yourself. How many times can you call 911 because they got to cover the whole city? And you dealing with your own specific issue. So you begin to mobilize people. And when you do that, you have strength in numbers. But the scary thing about that, once the issue has been resolved and there is no crisis, people go back into their cocoon. And so what I'm trying to suggest is that people who are truly interested in creating and maintaining a neighborhood organization must be self-chosen and possess the initiative and dedication to take action and sustain themselves as a strong, viable organization. Now, people have lives too, so they can't be at every meeting, but if you got a skeleton crew of people, you're very effective. What's in it for me? Why should I be bothered with, I've got my own personal life, I've got kids, I've got other issues. Now, if I'm involved, what am I going to get out of it? Well, I guess you get out of it what you put into it, okay? I guess the average person doesn't feel as part of the decision-making process, and there's a certain sense of loss of community. They're mad at city government. They're mad of inactivity or lack of responsiveness to my personal issue. And so I'm going to do something about that. And people feel better about themselves when they're empowered or in charge of their lives, of their own destiny. They learn something new about themselves. They find dignity and self-respect instead of a lack of confidence. They rediscover certain things. They rediscover their own needs and demands and strengths. And then they begin to relearn and begin to use the skills of cooperation, collective action, working together, and supporting others to influence, to speak out, and to fight back. A lot of people seek to arrive at new understanding of the neighborhood and the neighborhood organization in terms of who they are, what they do, and why they do what they do. They develop and establish new relationships within the neighborhood organization. They develop alliance with other organizations and agencies, with the private sector, with City Hall and staff, and with elected officials. And they become informed, engaged, and focus on building organization power over a long period of time, sustainability in terms of your organization. And the organizational structure is an effective tool for getting things done, for protecting and defending the neighborhood. And I think that's about it. But now I'm going to tell you a little bit about my Tacoma experience. We got started in 1978. The federal government mandated if we were to receive community development block grant funds, that was in 76, that we need to have a citizen participation plan. At that time, I was in what they call the program management system. I'll give you a brief history of my track. I went in as a planner, And I did that, and then my boss called me in one day. He said he had been watching me. What? He said, yeah. He said, you've been here about a month now, and you seem to be able to grasp things pretty well. You get along with staff. He said, there's a job in the program management systems as a program coordinator. He says about $20 a month more. I said, really? I don't know what a program coordinator is or the program management system. Well, the program management system was kind of like an Office of Management and Budget. We did comprehensive planning. We talked about big visions. We saw the city as a vision. You know, you look at public safety. It's more than just the police department. It's the fire department, the health department, the public works department. So we group things into larger categories. And we looked in terms of what would it cost to deliver this service, and we evaluated per unit. So, and I really, really learned a lot. But then in 1978, the opportunity came up when HUD said, you need a system participation plan in order to get this umpteen $1 million that you get based upon need. And I said, well, I like that because I like interacting with the public. I think I had gathered enough information in terms of how the city worked from the ground up to be able to do that. My fellow colleagues said, oh, Gatewood's out there stirring up those citizens. Man, we need to do something with it. My boss told me one time, why do you think you're going to be here next year? Things are good as they are. You don't need you to inform them, to educate them. Just tell them what they want to hear. I told him, I don't think so. Well, he retired later. I told him, Keith, as 15 years ago, you told me I may not be here this next year. I said, but now you gone. I said, so it tells me that I must be doing something right. The citizens didn't trust me because I was an agent of the government. They said, it's nice having you to come, Mr. Gatewood, but you can leave now. We got to talk some business, and you may be a spy. You began to develop a little Teflon. Don't take it personal. You're just the messenger. But you symbolizes the enemy, which was the government at that time. But anyway, it was a whole lot of fun. But I weathered the storm. I persevered. And we created what we call the Neighborhood Action Program. It was 1978. Citizens said we got mad. We want an ongoing participation. We don't want to be ad hoc members. To meet the mandates for the federal monies, they did citizen participation, but it was ad hoc, which implies that you can meet for 6 weeks and you give us recommendations, and we said you participated. But when the final report is written, the city didn't say what the people said. The city said what it wanted to say. And people were mad as the dickens. And so they demanded that they have an ongoing participation process. And so we developed a Neighborhood Action Program. I was still kind of the cast-aside guy. The city said, neighborhood, neighborhood, neighborhood. You know, that's one of those catch-all words, but did you truly mean it? Some did, some didn't. And so I said, well, okay, I will be your puppet. You send me out there, I'm not in charge. I said, but sooner or later it will come full circle. So I practiced neighborhood without a license for approximately 13 years, from 1978 until about 1992, when enabling legislation created the Neighborhood Council Program through an ordinance. Well, 1990, we had a summit, a citywide summit, and there were 8 different priorities. And number 4 priority, I can't remember all 8 of them. I can remember 4, which was my lucky number. But public safety, government performance, and so on. But Neighborhood Council was number 4. And so as a result of that, we convened a steering committee, which consisted of neighborhood people, nonprofit organizations, government staff, city council reps, and so on. And it took us 2 years to come up with an ordinance that could fulfill the creation of the Neighborhood Council Program as we know it today. One thing that we fought over was that, as some of my colleagues said, those people, I call them citizens, but those people, it was us against them. Do we create another layer of government? Are they going to usurp our authority? And the list go on and on. So the two key words was advisory. Neighborhood councils, advisory to the city council on all matters relating to the health, safety, and well-being of their neighborhood. And in just, we came up with ordinance 1.45, which created the neighborhood council. And in essence, the intent of the ordinance was to foster a collaboration, a trust and partnership of open communication between the city and its neighborhoods to enhance the opportunity again, for citizens to participate in government in the advisory role. It was also to foster cooperation and consensus among a diverse group, and to assist the city in developing solutions to issues and developing a sense of personal pride and responsibility for each citizen and their neighborhood. And there are 8 neighborhood councils. Like I said, sometime I'm gonna use the council and district as the same. What happened is that 1990 census provided information by neighborhood groups. So the city had to develop what they call neighborhoods. Traditionally, neighborhoods were based upon schools and churches, main arterial streets, natural impressions, and so on. So I sent out a survey, and we came up with 87 neighborhoods. The problem with that, I'm gonna call them subgroups, because Monday night, I was 2 blocks away from where I was Friday night, and so what I did, I used existing information, census tract planning information, and overlaid it and developed neighborhood councils. The city of Tacoma had 9 planning areas, but one of them was downtown Port, and nobody lived down there. So I combined that with the downtown and the Port industrial area, and I called it New Tacoma. And history told me that that area was created as part of the New Tacoma addition. And so I have trouble trying to explain to people where the New Tacoma came from. The history was that when Old Town merged into New Town and creating Tacoma, it was New Tacoma addition. So anyway, we got 8 neighborhood councils, and they vary in terms of neighborhood groups or subgroups, homeowners association, and so on. But for me, being kind of a one-person operation, it was workable. And that's the reason I did that. But I never did anything unless it met the blessings of the people that reside there. I lived on the east side at that time, and so I can't go to the West End and tell people what to do. You have to be a humble servant in order to maintain a level of trust and respect. The neighborhood council had several functions. It was to maintain itself as a nonprofit organization. It was to recruit and maintain a diverse membership, to review and make recommendations on the city's budget, document activities on an annual report, and they created their own bylaws and procedures for the neighborhood councils, and the ordinance to go on and those other things in the ordinance. Now, when you talk about neighborhood nonprofit, that came about kind of a strange way, that the city wanted a neighborhood program, but legally they didn't want it because the city had deep pockets. So they said, okay, neighborhood councils, we will create the neighborhood council as a program. You, as a group of people, will create a neighborhood council as an organization. That way, the people are self-governed. They're 501, not all of them, they are registered in the state of Washington as a nonprofit organization. And then I'll get to the community council, which is kind of an umbrella, which is a 501c3, which is the IRS designation. But anyway, the neighborhood councils became nonprofit in the state of Washington. The question came up is that how can you, the city, empower us, and control us. If we belong to you, if we are not independent, belong to you, you can tell us what to do. The city said, you're right. But yet and still we agree that, you know, you got some people out there could be renegades and we want to be held harmless for what action they undertake. So they settled on that. So that was a compromising thing, both legally and otherwise. And then somewhere if you got an attorney here, they know the language, that each year, each neighborhood council, because it is a nonprofit organization, contracts with the city, this year for $4,000 each, for maintenance and operation of their organization, i.e. paper, printing, mailing, et cetera, whatever $4,000, and training, capacity building, and so on, et cetera. So it worked out pretty good. There are 8 neighborhood councils, and then there are 3 representatives from each of the 8 neighborhood councils who sits on a community council. The community council has 1 or 2 primary functions. It's not the boss of the 8 neighborhood councils by no means. They come together and serve as a forum for broader issues, like citywide issues, whereas neighborhood councils are those issues that are unique to their specific neighborhood. People come together the 4th Thursday of each month, share information, and this is how we did this, and so on, et cetera. And there are 3 representatives from each. And so, matter of fact, on the 5th of next Monday, the community council will be addressing the city's neighborhood and housing committees. They're going to recommend a few revisions to the bylaws, or to the ordinance. So that's what the community council is all about. Now, this is what the function. They support and promote citizen participation in neighborhood enhancement. They promote and facilitate open communication between the city and individual neighborhood councils. They support and assist individual neighborhood councils in performing their functions and responsibilities. And they also serve as an information resource to the neighborhood council pursuing the Ordinance 25-188. Now, neighborhood councils have accomplished a lot. And it's probably more that's on the board than I could put on there, but I wanted to limit it to some big ticket items. 1998, the city of Tacoma was chosen as an all-American city. When we went down to Mobile, they said this was the first time in its history that a neighborhood organization had submitted something on behalf of their city. Traditionally, cities submit applications to become a neighborhood all-American city. So the neighborhood councils were very instrumental in submitting it, and they were very proud to have won the honor of being all-American city. Several years ago, we developed 8 neighborhood action plans for each of the 8 neighborhood councils. It was years back when they did the Growth Management Act, and some people may know about it or not. But anyway, they have to update the plan annually. So I asked the planning director, well, first of all, I had no staff. I had to wing it all by myself, but I was fortunate enough to have the resources of the city at my fingertip. And so part-time, some planners worked with me to develop 8 neighborhood council plans. Then after that, we were awarded $2,700,000 for small innovative grants. You guys call it something else here, but over a period of maybe 15 or 20 years. And these small innovative grants are $5,000 maximum, and the decisions are made by the neighborhood council within their neighborhood. We have been able to fund more than $2 million for LI, local improvement, for low-income people, which means when there's an assessment, if it meets a certain income threshold, the city had funds to pay for people's assessment for that. And we replaced over 2,500 broken and hazardous sidewalk and strategic handicap ramps throughout the city of Tacoma. And then one of the shock treatments that we had is that the city was trying to do what we call a councilmatic bond, and they did it. And so in support of that, the city manager at that time, he appropriated $750,000 to each of the 8 neighborhood councils to identify, prioritize, and projects that they wanted in their neighborhood. And to me, that was kind of a coup. And the neighborhood councils were able to leverage those funds about 2.5 or 3 times the amount. So you're talking about several $1 million. Examples of some neighborhood improvement projects, the Small Innovative Grant, I just talked about that, and $2 million plus stuff that we spent. We talked about the local improvement district, the broken and hazardous sidewalks, general obligation bond, that's the $750,000 multiplied by 8, and we leveraged that. But we are more than just neighborhood advisors. I said we're advisors to the city council. We're involved in difficult issues facing the community. Some we address land use issues. We closed down some drug houses. We formed strategic partnerships with the community, agencies and organizations, and even with city government. And we make significant contributions to public safety improvement, street-related improvements, parks, playgrounds. We created safe and clean neighborhoods and other public facilities. But to me, the most important thing was the citizens' commitment. Behind the numbers and stats, perhaps the greatest success of the Neighborhood Council program is the citizen volunteers like you who have given generously of their time and talents to make things happen. And here are some more programs that we involved in. Neighborhood programs, cleanups, we had a few celebrations, and we developed partnerships with other people, the Park Board, Public Works, Police Department, and we developed, over here in the right-hand corner, we developed those strategic plans. And we've made the city brighter and safer. We've tried to make the city cleaner and prettier by organizing cleanups. And that's it. That's my Tacoma story.